Why is it that the episodes that feel the most detached from the core story are the ones that work for me? And this trend continue, and that's not to say that like episodes like this or the one previous to this, or even the third one, the ghost episode, don't tie into things in some way. It's just they're way more self-contained. I tend to like them a lot better. I'm being left with a feeling that, for me at least, I'm not going to say this is actually what the show should have done, but for what I like about the show, I feel like I kind of would have preferred that it just, that it just be completely episodic and have totally tied up stories and not have an overarching plot at all. Because that's kind of what I have the least interest in. And I wasn't being turned off or annoyed by this episode, but I gotta admit to the fact that there wasn't a lot that made me perk up until Hippolyta got sucked into the thing, which, as that started, I was kind of like, oh God, really? Because, I know that it was a big moment and weird stuff's going on, but, that happened because she and Atticus, seeing it, knowing that it's there, just turned their back to it. But contrived reason as to why it happened aside, that was really good. That was really good. There was something really cathartic about seeing a character like Hippolyta, someone of her age, with her background and being stamped on for a lot of her life. And it's not like, they didn't show us her being stamped. They don't have to. They've demonstrated how being black in this time period and being a woman in this time period means that is your existence. That is just how it is. So we know that. And we know that she has gone through this. And we get even a little bit more about this when she has her conversations with, say, Josephine Baker. Which, first of all, Josephine Baker, oh, God, I love Josephine Baker. The minute I heard her name said, I was like, ooh, that's nice. And then she gets zipped off to Paris. I'm like, oh, are they really? Yes. If you don't know anything about Josephine Baker, seriously, Google her. There are great biographies. Find out about her because she's amazing. And, as a burlesque performer, and, I do know a bit about her, and that was, that immediately got me. And immediately that's a little bit of a personal hooking because, like I say, background in burlesque, but she's such an amazing woman. But what really got me was Hippolyta talking to her and realizing how not fulfilling of her potential her life has been. How no matter, how hard she pushes and what she's done, that they have just pushed her down. The world, the society, white people, it is called out specifically, yes, have been pushing her down. So even at her strongest, her most vibrant, she's still not where and what she should be. And there's a really powerful moment when she's basically, I'm paraphrasing, but she basically says, I hate them for that, and I hate me for letting it happen. And you can make an argument where there was nothing she could have done about it. It's in no way her fault. But that internalized self-blame and self-loathing, that happens. That's a thing. No matter if you have any proper sense of yourself, you are going to feel like you could and should have done more. You shouldn't have let the world do this to you. And so that was really valid. That was awesome to see. And then she gets to just kick all the ass in the Warrior segment. That was phenomenal. And then after that, I I love that it felt like it was, building. We've got the stuff with her and Josephine Baker, which seems largely about her confidence and her realizing what she could be. Then we've got the warrior stuff, which is much more about really directly empowering that confidence that was instilled with her and Josephine Baker. And like one is an escalation from the next. And you think, what's going to escalate to next? But it doesn't escalate. It goes softer. It goes quieter. It goes emotional, which without being as big and as showy is actually the escalation. Because above confidence, above whatever power you have to know how to handle yourself, the people you love, and your feelings and your emotions, and you have to process that. This is important. That was absolutely the note to bring that to a conclusion on for these 3 beats that she is going through. And first of all, I've said before, I love George. I have been missing him pretty much since he died. So having him back at all was wonderful. And the sincerity and the warmth and the acknowledgments of failings in that conversation without it turning into this, big screaming, tears streaming, overwrought thing, but like it's just honest. It's not melodramatic, it's just honest. And that was awesome. And there's a lot of other little details. I like it. The way she gets wrapped up, even before she gets sucked into this thing, the way that she gets wrapped up into all this stuff and, is getting intrigued and pulled in by it, in terms of just having something pull at her curiosity and making her wonder again. I thought the design on I don't know if she was actually meant to be an alien, but the person that took her on this journey with the massive hair and statuesque, I'm like, that's awesome. That's anyone who complains about that, I don't want to hear from you. That is just epic and awesome. It was the heart of this episode is really, really good. And once that part of it hit the mark really well for me. So that was all wonderful. The stuff more tying into the ongoing plot lines. Here's the thing. I'm going to bring this up just because it's going to bother me if I don't. But I also want to emphasize I'm not as upset about this as some of the specific elements that have gone into the character of Montrose up to this point, either in terms of characterization or his actions. But even though this didn't infuriate me the way some of the things done with him have, it did still give me one more reason to be frustrated with him as a character. And that is we're getting... And I hate having to explain why this is going, and I know I'm going to have to, God, I'm going to have to sink more time into this than I want. Okay, let me just say it. It annoys me that he is being framed as a self-loathing gay man. Now, I fully understand that self-loathing gay men are a thing that happens, and absolutely a thing that would have been even more prevalent in the time period when this thing is set. I'm not saying it's an invalid way to portray gay men. I'm not saying it's an inaccurate way to portray gay men for the setting that we have for this thing. What I am saying is self-loathing gay men is something that I've seen way too much of. I feel like that is the default for any portrayal of a gay man who is not fully out. And yes, being closeted with whatever you are, whether it be about your sexuality or your gender or whatever else, being closeted, that can turn inward and cause you to, at least emotionally, if not directly, self-harm and have that sense of loathing, but it doesn't have to. A lot of times people are just scared. They're not angry. They're not mad at themselves. They're not lashing out at other people like them because they're seeing something reflected about themselves that they wish was different. Sometimes it's just a quiet pain that you take through and you endure. And I'm not saying the show had to depict that, but again, just I see the self-loathing gay man. And like it ties into this this cliche and this thing that gets said, often as an insult, like, oh, people who are homophobes are really closeted homosexuals, which again, just reinforces this idea that to deviate from the norm, from heterosexual cisgender, involves some kind of self-loathing, involves damage that we do to ourselves, that the community does to itself because its biggest opponents are actually secretly part of the community. And that makes the entire thing of issues of homophobia and actually a gay person's problem, not a straight person's problem. And granted, none of that is directly said by the episode, and I've extrapolated a bit, but I've tried to do that to put it into the context of a view that is often unspoken, but is why I'm kind of really over the self-loathing gay man as a trope and a character template. But again, despite my frustration with it, and despite how long I actually had to talk about it, but I feel like I had to do that for context. Don't take how long I spent talking about it in this review as an indication of how much it upset me. Because, well, I mean, if you've been following my reviews of this, you know that when the show has upset me, this just frustrated me. But everything else that goes on after that is wonderful and amazing, and I'm still nervous for future episodes, even though we've now had 2 good ones in a row, because, well, it's going to tie back to the main plot again, and I still just am not feeling it for that. Especially like with Christine, the more we're learning about how the magic works, the less interesting I find it. I think that's just sort of the inherent push-pull of Lovecraftian style horror. I shouldn't be understanding this much, and neither should any of them. I feel like people have too firm an understanding about what this stuff is and how it works, and I'm just left thinking, you should be able to figure this much of it out. That just, I don't know. And you know what? Maybe that's just my take on Lovecraft, and maybe I latch way more onto the you can't possibly put all the pieces of this together. Because the honest truth is there are people who have done extensive, research and or building of Lovecraftian lore so that everything does make sense and you can connect all the pieces. But for me, fundamentally, if you even do that, you're missing the point. It's too big to understand. It's too bizarre to understand. What is going on in terms of these forces, these powers, these entities, it is never going to fit inside a human head. So any story that makes it feel like it's more comprehensible to me feels like it's missing the forest for the trees. But again, that's me, and that's what draws me to Lovecraft and cosmic horror. And that may not be what draws everybody else. Maybe other people just really like tentacles and wings put together in combination. I don't know. I ain't gonna judge. I won't kink shame around here. That was low. I'm sorry. Let's wrap up. Lovecraft Country, episode 7. There we go. Have you seen it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff, like, share, subscribe. I have a Patreon, which ensures that I am able to pay my bills and also, actually afford things like HBO Max so that I can watch this show and be able to talk about it. But if you're not able to do that, I've still got all the other usual things you can do, plus links to social media, merch, etc. down in the description. Check it out, or, don't. No pressure. I try and keep it relaxed around here because it's just a place to come on back the next time you need a break.